For those who regularly watch the Battle of the Beast Show series on the channel, you might have caught a tease towards the end of the previous episode as to what today's video will cover. Now that we're near mid-August and getting closer to covering SummerSlam weekend, this is going to be a continuation of sorts as we take a pit stop to Melbourne, Australia to cover the WWE's Global Warning Tour event. Amongst several international ventures taking place this year, including the previously covered SmackDown tour in Japan, as well as Raw's UK tour in May, the Blue brand, along with a few Raw defectors, will now journey overseas for the Fed's first Aussie event since 1986. Just shy of 57,000 fans at Colonial Stadium, let's check out another major event during the early days of the Ruthless Aggression era, WWE Global Warning from 2002. While the event itself had 9 matches take place, a third of the card actually got cut from later broadcasts and home video releases. These matches include Hardcore Holly and Chavo Guerrero beating Billy and Chuck, bit of an odd pairing in Holly and Chavito, Kurt Angle defeating Test of the Un-Americans, plus Mark Henry and Randy Orton getting the win over Reverend Devon and Deacon Batista. The show opens with General Manager Stephanie McMahon welcoming Melbourne for WWE's return to the country tonight. And just to get this out of the way, if you didn't already hate the crowd dubbing that's associated with this era of SmackDown, then you probably will after this show because it's going to be used to pipe in crowd noise the entire time. The party kicks off with Rikishi Fatu dancing alongside Steph on the ramp before he faces Rico in a Kiss My Ass match to start off the action.
Speaking of losers, that's Tony Chimmel. I can't believe we brought him here, Cole.
How did Chimmel get through customs?
Yeah.
Though you gotta believe Rico wished he hadn't backstabbed Mark Lloyd on Velocity so he could have the scapegoat in case of a loss. Rico tries for a cheap shot at the start and looks to flee when it backfires, but he gets tossed back into the ring. Michael mentions the backstory of Kishi's stomach scar as Rico kicks near that spot in the corner, then trying for a sunset flip only to escape from Fatu dropping his keister in the reversal. A belly-to-belly looks to set up the rump shaker that doesn't connect due to Constantino crawling away, with Jimmy Corderas checking the ropes for whatever reason, giving Rico time to deliver a low blow. Rico follows up with a sidekick and chooses to taunt the fans instead of going for a cover, hopefully learning his lesson once the moonsault fails to land and Rikishi recovers to execute the Samoan drop and get the win. Rico argues with Corderas about having to pucker up for the victor's backside, trying to drop Rikishi and pays with a savate kick. The Samoan backs it up in the corner and gives Colonial Stadium a sight of his stink face to send the hairstylist packing back overseas. Rikishi looks through the crowd and ends up dancing in the rain with a couple of kids for a brief but fun way to start things off. We get to see Jamie Noble and Nidia going surfing for the first time.
Flown halfway around the world to learn to surf. It's great.
Oh, but it's fun once you
Thanks, Vince.
A part of the incredible visit the two have compared to just looking at a postcard of these sites. Jamie Noble once again defends his Cruiserweight title against the Hurricane. If you've seen their previous encounters at King of the Ring and the rematch on Velocity, then you know what to expect from these two. Helms wastes little time getting the advantage to hopefully win back the gold, taking things to the corner where he seemingly ruins Noble and Nidia's night back at their hotel room. The Hurra chokeslam gets blocked by the champion, but retaliates soon after getting dropped with the super kick, though this mistake allows Sugar Shane to fly through Melbourne with a top rope crossbody. Nidia quickly smooches her former flame to cause a distraction and allow her new man to sway momentum back in their favor. While Michael Cole explains his frustrations with trying to understand Australia's version of football, as Jamie slows the action down for a few moments. Hurricane fights out and gets caught off again via the back suplex, Noble taking a second to make out with his girlfriend.
Regain, retain, whatever you want to call it. Nidia's making out with him.
A little premature celebration.
Like a premature...
No, can't go there. Shot to the head.
And almost costs him when getting rolled up. Helms briefly finds an opening to nail a crossbody off the ropes before finding himself on the receiving end of an electric chair drop that isn't able to end this title match. Nidia chokes Hurricane behind Corderas' back. Gears shifted quickly to an Aussie chinlock where the former Cruiserweight champion stays fighting and finds his second win to send Jamie crashing down with a running head scissors. Helms' comeback and the Blockbuster don't get the job done, so he looks for the eye of the Hurricane just when Noble escapes and smoothly transitions into a pump handle suplex for another near fall. The Tiger Bomb after gets reversed for the eye to be hid, but Noble barely makes it out before 3. The two trade more reversals until Jamie runs shoulder first into the ring post. Hurricane manages to lift Jamie to the top rope and land a massive swinging neckbreaker that takes the breath out of both competitors, but not nearly enough from Jamie for the cover. Nidia gets on the apron to prevent another chokeslam while giving Jamie an advantage for the backslide and needing the middle rope for leverage to get a trifecta of title defenses against SmackDown's superhero. Hurricane looks for payback against Nidia, teasing a chokeslam only for Noble to accidentally run into his girlfriend as he takes the move and the proverbial bullet. Helms celebrates with the belt before walking up the ramp. Christian, Lance Storm, and Kurt Angle throw some boomerangs and visit the zoo, as Kurt describes his more humanly side towards the animal kingdom and the excitement regarding WWE coming back to the country. The Canadians won't be that kind towards a different pair of animals as they defend the World Tag Team titles against Billy Kidman and Rey Mysterio in their first match as a team since the final Monday Nitro. Quite the missed opportunity to bring the Cruiserweight Tag Team titles with them to Melbourne, but I digress. Kidman and Storm start the match trading holds as Lance tries to get past Billy's speed but fails when the head scissors and dropkick send him onto the mat. Christian tags in and hopes for a double clothesline that's ducked and countered before Ray comes in to drop Edge's alleged brother for a near fall. Ray reverses an Irish whip attempt and knocks Storm off the apron, staying distracted long enough for Christian to push him off to ringside and land near the security guard by the barricade.
Look at that guy!
Once too often, and Mysterio knocked down by Christian.
I guess they don't have stack of 2 here in Australia.
And Lance Storm
Beg you to sell one joke.
shoving Rey Mysterio back into the ring. And
Cage manages to ground Mysterio and allow the champions to target the midsection, even tossing him high up towards the top rope, with Christian later distracting Mike Chioda and Kidman, all while Storm chokes out the luchador in the heels' corner to set up another chinlock. Ray Jr. gets the fight back by nailing a springboard dropkick off the ropes, then hitting the enziguri to tag out until the brief WCW commissioner flies from out of nowhere to prevent a hot tag and continue attacking one of the filthy animals while Billy is sent back to his corner. Lance sends Mysterio to another corner and tries for a German suplex when the biggest little man lands on his feet, and a spinning wheel kick finally brings Kidman back in. Knocking both Un-Americans down in quick fashion and hitting the Dudley Dog almost brings the tag titles back to SmackDown, with one of the actual belts being brought into the ring thanks to Christian and successfully takes Billy's eye off the ball. Lance's super kick hopes to keep the gold in the Canadian camp, but Ray breaks the cover and Kyoto still hasn't gotten the belt out of the ring. The 619 clears out Christian and Kidman launches his partner for an assisted Hurricane Rana. The Shooting Star Press gets Melbourne on their feet and signals the finish when Christian pulls Kyoto out of the ring, with him being taken out by Mysterio's springboard moonsault. While this goes down, Storm finally uses the tag belt that, according to Cole, was in the ring for 2.5 minutes to get a cheap but easy win tonight, as they should start to be more concerned about The Undertaker wanting to chase him down again like he did in Baltimore. Kidman, Edge, and Torrie Wilson go on their respective sightseeing, with Torrie getting lost in the clothing selection at Queen Victoria Market in between meeting fans halfway across the world. The trio eats some delicious looking cheesecake and lemon meringue pie before we segue into this next matchup with Fozzie's lead singer Chris Jericho once again facing Edge. Taz points out Y2J wearing red tights as he represents Raw, while Edge does the same for SmackDown. The future rated R superstar recording the sight of this massive Australian crowd on his personal camcorder that Taz claims he helped to give thanks to his connections with the one and only Joey Numbers. Jericho takes his sweet time getting into the ring and mocking the use of that camcorder, but soon takes offense to the low-life scum daring to call him.
What are they saying? You all. What are they saying?
You are a waker.
What the hell is a waker?
Use your imagination.
Oh, like a. What's a wake? Oh, like a. Oh, I get it. All right.
Chris takes the mic to rub his accomplishments in their faces, not knowing exactly what that term means, before throwing insults towards Edge and pays dearly when his fellow Canadian comes out of the gate by throwing him across the ring, with Chris regrouping only to run right into a rebound elbow moments later. The first Undisputed Champion relies on an eye poke to finally get any offense in thus far. A rebound attack gets telegraphed and results in Chris getting tied up in the ropes for a spear and spinning wheel kick to give Edge a 2. Jericho uses Brian Hebner as a shield to once again find an advantage against his former rival, taking a moment to mock the fans before driving a knee into Edge's back and help the supposed king of the world get his confidence back. Jericho hones in on his opponent's back with a submission, though this isn't for long when Edge fights out and gets in a schoolboy for 2, ending up clotheslined and suplexed. Chris tries to take off the top turnbuckle cover, and Hebner needing to fix it causes a delay in Edge's roll-up count, with the Ayatollah grabbing the top rope for leverage in his abdominal stretch a minute later, eventually getting caught. Chris's next middle rope attack goes wrong when the former King of the Ring moves out of the way, both men struggling to get back on their feet with the Edgeheads cheering on the Blue Brand star to begin his comeback. Edge looks for a top rope dive when he gets caught off, and Jericho looks for a superplex, only to have that reversed into a sit-out suplex from the top rope that Chris finds a way to kick out of. Edge makes accidental contact with the referee, and almost identically to his match with RVD on Raw, Chris goes to grab a chair at ringside, but this attack is thwarted by a spear with a pinfall that doesn't get counted. A second spear is telegraphed, letting Chris connect with the Bulldog but not his Lionsault. Edge pulling out a third spear that Bryan is barely able to count and Y2J stays alive from. Jericho finally uses the chair and gets in the Lionsault, but whether for personal or brand loyalty reasons, Edge manages to kick out of the follow-up cover. Chris, hoping for a rebound attack, instead leads to Sexton Hardcastle blocking and catapulting him into the exposed turnbuckle, but still isn't enough to give either brand the win when the execution is reversed into the walls. The rotation giving Edge enough room to roll Jericho up, steal the win, and send Chris back to Eric Bischoff's show a defeated man. Monday, Jericho comes out when he uses the chair on the ring post and proceeds to knock or tear everything else out of his way while heading for the locker room. Edge climbs one of the lighting truss posts to soak in the moment in front of the 50,000 plus during his celebration. We head back to the Fan Frenzy event from yesterday, and with Xbox sponsoring this event, Mark Henry and others had the unfortunate task of playing the first Raw game for the console. Just wait a while to import the Wild Reigns and you'll get a superior wrestling game to play. Venus Valboski arrives to serve the role of special guest ring announcer for the Bra and Panties encounter between Stacy Keibler and Torrie Wilson. Val uses the obvious comparison about him and the country going down under before introducing both divas. Stacy offers a handshake to referee Mike Sparks, but slaps Torrie as the match begins. Miss Hancock shows some wrestling ability, but goes dirty to keep Torrie grounded. Torrie manages to leapfrog and hip toss her opponent before going for the shorts. Keibler comes back thanks to a stun gun, and is then able to take Wilson's top off with her own shirt coming off soon after. The two go back to throwing a few attacks near the corner and at ringside to remove their bottom clothing and going to the catfight spot with Mike Sparks getting caught in the absolute carnage. For enjoying that moment too much, Torrie exposes the peculiar choice of underwear he's been hiding under the uniform, just as Nidia comes running down to offer a helping hand against Torrie. Nidia gets deep-handsed quickly and runs up the ramp with her shorts. Stacy hoping to take advantage of the distraction, but gets sent into the turnbuckle and allowing Torrie to pull off her shorts to get the victory. Some post-match spanking follows before Stacy gets out of the ring. Torrie continues celebrating while topless, with only one match left to cover at Global Warning. Highlights from the previous night's charity dinner are shown, as our triple threat main event for the Undisputed WWE Championship is coming up next. Brock Lesnar destroyed Hulk Hogan on SmackDown to write him off TV and off this show entirely, despite being one of the bigger names advertised. Lesnar hopes to jump the gun ahead of SummerSlam to win the WWE title if he and Paul Heyman have their way. Triple H was revealed on Raw to be the one who attacked Shawn Michaels in the parking lot, to the shock of, well, hopefully no one. But there is a possibility that his street fight with HBK in Uniondale could also have a major prize at stake if the game emerges victorious in Melbourne. And finally, The Rock. The defending WWE Champion was MIA on both the main shows this past week, but that doesn't mean he won't be slacking to keep his title tonight in front of a big house at Colonial Stadium, while also ensuring that his main event spot at SummerSlam stays intact. Rock and Brock trade some verbal jabs before Maivia throws some punches. The rookie gets ping-ponged between the top Raw and SmackDown stars and sent outside to the floor when Triple H ends the brief alliance to go after the champion. Hunter goes on offense to win back his title, but gets cut off when Rock reverses and throws Lesnar back into the ring, finding an opening to go after his future main event opponent. Hunter lives up to the Cerebral Assassin nickname by teaming with Brock to wear down the Hollywood star, going for a pin that Brock doesn't break up, which Cole and Taz try to cover up with by using his inexperience. Rocky ducks under the double clothesline to deliver his own pair of lines and uses Lesnar to send Triple H off his feet. Brock finds his chance to wear down the People's Champion until he gets sent over the top, which cues all three superstars to brawl at ringside. Or 4 if we count Heyman's cheap shot before luring Rock into Helmsley's attacks. Triple H shifts his focus in the ring towards Brock with some corner attacks that show the rising star in a more vulnerable state than normal, though Lesnar corrects this when throwing his own corner attacks towards the game. Brock taunting the veteran costs him when he runs into the jumping knee and Rock returns to take him out, giving Hunter a path to execute a neckbreaker for the near fall. Brock does break up a later pin attempt and tries for the F5, easily escaping pedigree and rock bottom attempts before sending Triple H outside again and tossing Rock with the overhead belly to belly. Rock trying to fight back results in the bear hug getting applied, struggling much like Hogan did before, but we don't see any internal bleeding taking place. Triple H is the one to don a crimson mask when the Brahma Bull gets some air to escape the hold and block the F5 to start his comeback. A sharpshooter applied forces Hunter to get back in and save his opportunity by nailing the pedigree, but Brock once again breaks up the cover. The next big thing gives Triple H his first of what would be several F5s over a decade to come, but doesn't win the title when Rock barely pushes himself to break things up and give Melbourne the people's elbow, down under, that doesn't put Brock away. Heyman getting a little too animated on the apron only brings him a hand from the Grey One, and leads to another F5 that Triple H has to interrupt to keep this main event going. The pedigree to follow doesn't put the Beast down, barely kicking out at 3 as Hunter goes back to his longtime rival who pops up to hit the rock bottom and survive this international main event to retain the gold. While Cole and Taz abruptly sign off, Brock looks to repeat history with his SummerSlam opponent via a chair, only for Triple H to attack and once again team with Rock to clear the rookie out of the ring. Brock's agent fails to learn his lesson from earlier, begging Rock and Hunter to show mercy, which the piped-in Melbourne fans don't want. Telling Paulie to get up, a few minutes of banter result in handshakes of false hope towards a pedigree and a people's elbow from both guys to massive ovations. The pair taunt after to send the crowd home happy, including Rock finally getting to say,
Finally, The Rock has come back to Melbourne!
to wrap up WWE's Global Warning event. While this was a fancied up house show at the end of the day, I'd also be a bit disingenuous if I didn't state how big this whole event ended up being. The success of Global Warning would start a more regular amount of tours to Australia over the coming years for WWE, and in some way, plant the seed for a few more pay-per-views, or PLEs if you're that type of person, to air live on both their own and hosted streaming platforms in the somewhat distant future. I really enjoyed Global Warning as a whole, with it having a lot of good and enjoyable matches that had very little issues mixed in with footage of the roster experiencing different hotspots of what the country has to offer. And even had some of the most laid-back commentary between Michael Cole and Taz that I've ever heard, without needing to be as serious or consistent like they would be on SmackDown. There were a pretty good amount of jokes and amusing exchanges heard throughout. One big gripe I have has to do with cutting the 3 aforementioned matches earlier out of the final broadcast and releases. While I'm sure they would have been decent matches included just to extend the runtime closer to a proper WWE pay-per-view, they're still missing pieces of the entire package that was put out for those fans in Melbourne who got to see it live. Hopefully those matches and any extra footage from this trip do get uploaded at some point in the future. The other gripe just comes from the constant crowd dubbing. I don't know if it was needed for audio issues or whatever the reason, but I'll just say that I now have even more of a disdain for that hairdryer pop every time it's used in future Battle of the Beast Shows episodes. It was nice to take a break from velocity and heat to watch a WWE show during this early Ruthless Aggression time period with most of the big names featured in a completely different setting that made it all the more enjoyable from start to finish. While the main event itself is on YouTube, track down the entire Global Warning pay-per-view if you can, because you'll enjoy something that elevated this fairly decent house show towards a forgotten and possibly underrated wrestling event held overseas.